He insulted me. Everyone expected me to react. But I smiled, and walked away. That day, I mastered something most people never learn, even after 60 years. We live in a world where everything seems personal. A look. A word. A comment online. After 40, it gets worse: the pressure to stay composed, to be mature, to not show that you're hurt. But here's the truth: most of our pain doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from how we react. I didn't believe that until I found the words of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. And when I applied them, my life didn't just change, it quieted. In this video, I'll share with you 7 Stoic life lessons that changed the way I think, feel, and respond, especially after 40. If you master them, you'll never again be shaken by people, or life. Lesson 1. No one can hurt you unless you let them. I remember the moment like it just happened yesterday. I was 47. Working for a man 15 years younger than me. Smart guy. Sharp suit. Loud voice. No patience. One morning, in front of a room full of colleagues, he snapped at me. Maybe if you weren't so slow, this project wouldn't be late. The room fell silent. I laughed, but inside, it felt like someone had just slammed a door in my chest. It wasn't just the insult. It was the disrespect, the humiliation, the feeling of being small, after years of experience, loyalty, and doing things the right way. That day, I went home angry. I didn't sleep. Replay after replay in my head. What I should have said, how I should have stood up for myself, but the next morning, something strange happened. I opened a book that had been collecting dust on my shelf. A friend gave it to me long ago. Discourses by Epictetus. I flipped randomly, and this sentence stared back at me: it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinion about them. I paused. Could it be that his words didn't actually hurt me? Could it be that I gave his words the power to wound me? It hit me like a quiet truth I had been avoiding my whole life. I had spent decades believing others were responsible for my pain. But that morning, I realized I was giving away my peace too easily. It wasn't about him. It was about me: how much value I placed on his words. How I tied my worth to someone else's mood, tone, or approval. You see, after 40, you carry many scars. Some from family. Some from co-workers. Some from people you once trusted. But if you look closely, you'll find that the deepest wounds were not just from what they did, but from what we allowed their actions to mean. The Stoics teach something powerful: no one can truly insult you unless you believe the insult. No one can humiliate you unless you accept their judgment. It's not weakness to stay calm. It's strength, the kind most people never develop. After that day, I didn't confront my boss. I didn't write a long email. I simply stopped needing his approval. I did my work. I walked with quiet confidence. He never apologized. But he noticed the change. And oddly enough, he started respecting me more. Because people can smell it when you no longer need their validation to stand tall. So here's the lesson: you are not what people say about you. You are what you believe about yourself. And if you believe that your peace, your worth, your calm, can only be shaken with your permission, then you've taken the first step toward freedom. That was the beginning of my Stoic journey. It didn't happen overnight. But with every test, every insult, every moment of tension, I asked myself, do I want to give this power over me? Most times, the answer is no. Now that you know this truth, that no one can hurt you unless you let them, let me show you how to build that pause between action and reaction. Because in that space lies the next lesson. Lesson 2, pause before you react, always. The first time I truly understood the power of pausing was the day I almost ruined a 22-year marriage with just one sentence. It was a small argument. You know, the kind not even about anything serious. I was tired, she was tired. She said something sharp. I felt disrespected. Again. And without thinking, I fired back, maybe if you actually listened once in a while, we wouldn't be here. Her face. I'll never forget it. Shock. Hurt. Silence. That silence cut deeper than any words ever could. I slept on the couch that night. Not because she told me to, but because I couldn't face the version of myself I had become. The next morning, I made coffee, sat by the window, and opened my journal. On the first page, I had written this quote: months ago, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Viktor Frankl. That line had sounded poetic the first time I read it. But that morning, it became real. I realized I had let a split-second emotion dictate the kind of man I was. All because I didn't pause. The Stoics call it self-governance. The ability to stand still inside, even when everything around you feels like fire. Seneca once wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." So I made a decision that day, one that changed my relationships, my work, and my peace. I will never again speak in anger. Not before I pause. Not before I breathe. Now, whenever I feel that rush, the tightening in my chest, the heat rising up my neck, I do one simple thing: I stop. I breathe in for 4 seconds. I exhale slowly. I ask myself, is what I'm about to say worth the damage it may cause? 9 times out of 10, it's not. And that 10th time, I still wait. Because the truth is, once words leave your mouth, they don't return. They echo. They bruise. They stay. I've learned that most regrets in life aren't from what we didn't say, they're from what we said too fast, too loud, too emotionally. Especially after 40, when your words carry more weight. Your children are watching. Your spouse is listening. Your co-workers are taking notes. So now, I let silence do the work. I let time pass. I write the angry email, and save it in drafts. I revisit it the next day. And most times, I delete it. Pausing isn't weakness. It's wisdom in motion. It's how you turn reaction into reflection. Impulse into insight. Noise into clarity. And in that sacred pause, you reclaim your power. This practice of pausing, it's like a shield, invisible, but strong. It protects your relationships, your dignity, and most of all, your peace. Now that you understand the power of the pause, let's talk about something just as important: learning to see people for who they really are, not who we hope they'll be. Because expectations are often the enemy of peace. Lesson 3: people show you who they are, believe them. I spent nearly 18 years trying to fix someone who never wanted to be fixed. And the saddest part is, I ignored all the signs. Right from the beginning. He was my closest friend. We met in our early 30s, ambitious, driven, chasing big dreams. He was funny, loud, magnetic. But every now and then, he'd say something that stung a little. Like the time he joked about my weight in front of others. Or when he borrowed money, and never brought it up again. Or when he forgot to invite me to his promotion dinner. Each time, I'd make an excuse. He's just busy. He means well. He had a rough childhood. I kept telling myself, that's not who he really is. But over time, the pattern stayed. The jokes turned sharper. The support faded. And when I needed him most, during the loss of my father, he didn't even call. That night, I sat alone on my porch. Empty chair next to me. Silence heavier than grief. And something hit me. Not like lightning. More like rain, soft, but undeniable. People are always telling you who they are. You just have to listen. The Stoics believed that we suffer more from our expectations than from reality. We get hurt when people don't act the way we think they should instead of seeing them for who they actually are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When someone does wrong, it is because they believe it is right. Blame them less. Expect less. Observe more." That's when I stopped asking, "Why did he treat me this way?" and started asking, "Why did I keep expecting something different?" You see, after 40, you start realizing you don't have time to keep giving people one more chance. You don't have the energy to carry disappointment like luggage. So I made peace with the truth I once feared: some people are not meant to go with you to your next chapter. And that's okay. Now, I watch behavior, not words. I believe patterns, not apologies. I honor actions, not intentions. When someone shows me they're inconsistent, I believe them. When someone shows me they're kind, I believe them. When someone shows me they disappear when it matters, I stop waiting for them to change. Because your peace depends on clarity. And clarity begins with acceptance. That friend? We drifted. No big argument. No dramatic goodbye. Just a quiet knowing that I no longer needed to rewrite his character in my head. And you know what? The moment I stopped forcing connections, the right ones found their way in. So here's the lesson: don't fight the signs. Don't argue with reality. People show you who they are, believe them. And move accordingly. And once you do that, it becomes easier to accept the next big truth: you control nothing, except your mind. Let's talk about that next. Lesson 4, you control nothing, except your mind. I used to think that if I just tried hard enough, planned well enough, kept everyone happy enough, then life would go my way. But life doesn't care about your plans. I was 52 when it happened. 27 years in the same company. Steady promotions, stable income, a sense of control. Then, one Friday afternoon, just another ordinary day, I was called into a meeting. The tone was professional. The words were rehearsed. The message was simple: we're restructuring. Your position has been made redundant. I didn't say anything. Not because I was calm, but because I was frozen. Numb. I packed up my office. Photos. Pens. A coffee mug that said, "World's Best Dad." Walked to my car, and cried like a child. It wasn't just the job. It was the identity. The security. The illusion that I was in control. For weeks, I spiraled. What now? Who would hire me at this age? What would my wife think? My kids? My friends? One night, I found myself staring at the ceiling, and I remembered something I read from Marcus Aurelius: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. I read it again. Slowly. It didn't change my situation. But it changed how I sat inside my situation. I couldn't control the company. I couldn't control the market. I couldn't control the fact that I had to start over at an age when most people slow down. But I could control one thing: what this moment meant to me. So I made a decision. No, not a plan, not yet. Just a decision: I will not let this define me. I will respond with grace, not bitterness. I will protect my mind, even if I cannot protect my circumstances. Each morning, I wrote down what I still had. Health. A supportive wife. Time. Experience. And most importantly, a mind that could choose what to do next. That shift didn't solve my problems. But it gave me power, the only kind that matters: inner control. The Stoics weren't interested in controlling the world. They focused on mastering their thoughts, their actions, their perspective. And when I finally let go of what I couldn't control, I found freedom. I started consulting, then coaching, then speaking. Not to chase success, but because I wanted to share what I'd learned that life will take from you. Often without warning. But it cannot take your will, your integrity, your peace unless you hand them over. If you remember just one thing from this lesson, let it be this: you are not your job. You are not your losses. You are not what happens to you. You are how you respond. And the mind is where your true strength lives. So breathe, reset, and ask yourself, what part of this is still mine to choose? Now that you've seen how control begins in the mind, let's go deeper. Because the next lesson might be the one you've resisted your whole life. Stop expecting life to be fair. Lesson 5, stop expecting life to be fair. I used to carry around this invisible weight of belief that if I worked hard, treated people right, stayed patient, then life would treat me fairly. But life doesn't hand out justice like clockwork. It doesn't reward kindness on demand. And it doesn't punish cruelty on schedule. I learned that the hard way, through a long, painful journey with my younger brother. He struggled with addiction. And for years, I was his lifeline. I paid for rehab twice. I picked him up at 3 a.m. when he called me from a gas station. I defended him when our parents gave up. And every time, he promised, this time will be different. But it never was. One night, I came home from work tired, drained, and found my living room ransacked. He had stolen my wife's jewelry, some cash from our safe, and even my watch, the one my father left me when he died. I sat down on the floor. Not in rage. Just disappointment. Exhaustion. And I asked myself the question that had haunted me for years: why do bad things keep happening to good people? That night, I picked up Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. It opened to this passage: expecting life to treat you fairly because you are a good person is like expecting a bull not to charge because you are a vegetarian. I stared at those words for a long time. And then, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I had finally understood something: fairness is a human construct. Life doesn't operate on our expectations. It just is. Rain falls on the just and unjust. Illness visits the kind and the cruel. Loss doesn't check your moral record before it knocks on your door. The Stoics didn't waste time asking, why me? They asked, how will I respond? So I stopped asking life to be fair. I started asking myself to be strong. I set boundaries with my brother. I forgave him not because he deserved it, but because I needed to stop bleeding from a wound that would never close if I kept picking at it. I started seeing pain not as punishment, but as part of the human condition. And slowly, I made peace with a world that didn't always make sense. I stopped fighting what I couldn't change. And in that surrender, I found peace. If you're still holding on to resentment, waiting for the universe to balance the scales, let me say this to you gently: you may never get the apology. You may never see karma arrive. But you can still find peace without it. Because your peace isn't something life owes you. It's something you create from within. So let life be unfair. Let people be who they are. And let go of the idea that you're owed anything except the chance to respond with grace. And when you do that, you unlock a kind of richness that goes beyond fairness: emotional freedom. And that is where we'll go next. Lesson 6: Emotional freedom is wealth. There was a time when I thought being wealthy meant having a bigger house, a newer car, or a thicker retirement account. But now, at 57, I've learned something far more valuable: emotional freedom is the greatest wealth you'll ever own. It happened gradually. Not overnight. But there was a moment, a quiet shift, when I knew I was finally free. It was a Sunday afternoon. My wife and I were at a family gathering. You know the kind: plastic chairs, paper plates, small talk, opinions flying around like mosquitoes. An old uncle, the kind who always has something to say, looked at me and said, "Still in that little consulting business of yours? I thought you'd have done something bigger by now." In the past, that would have burned me. I would have smiled politely, but replayed that comment for days. Questioned my choices. Compared myself to others. Felt smaller. But that day, I just smiled and said, "Yeah. And I'm exactly where I want to be." And I meant it. Not out of pride, but out of peace. That's when I realized I didn't need people to understand me anymore. I didn't need approval, applause, or permission. I was finally living for me, not for their opinions. That's emotional freedom. And it's rare. Especially in a world that constantly tries to stir your emotions to make you angry, offended, insecure, or outraged. The Stoics warned us about this long ago. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit." Think about that. Every time someone gets under your skin. Every time a stranger on the internet ruins your day. Every time your peace is stolen, it's because you handed them the keys. Emotional freedom means taking those keys back. It means refusing to be a puppet to other people's strings. It means not reacting to every insult, every misunderstanding, every unfair comment. And it's not indifference. It's strength. The kind of strength that looks like calm. That sounds like silence. That feels like peace. After 40, you realize there's so much you can't control: people, the news, the past, even your own children sometimes. But you can always choose how much power you give to chaos. I stopped chasing people who didn't see me. I stopped over-explaining myself. I stopped defending decisions that brought me peace. Instead, I chose clarity, boundaries, and silence, the kind that says, "I no longer owe you my emotional energy." And do you know what happened? Life got lighter. Relationships became cleaner. And I began to breathe in rooms that used to suffocate me. So here's the truth I wish I'd known decades earlier: if your peace depends on everyone behaving how you want, you'll never have it. But if your peace depends on how you respond, then you've already won. Emotional freedom is a daily practice. But once you taste it, you'll never trade it for anything, not even approval. And when you live from that place, you're ready for the final lesson: choose peace. Every single time. Lesson 7, choose peace, every single time. There was a time when I always had to win. The last word. The argument. The silent battle where I'd prove, even without saying it, that I was right and they were wrong. But winning came at a cost. It cost me sleep. It cost me joy. Sometimes, it even cost me the people I loved most. I remember one conversation with my daughter. She was 19, passionate, emotional, full of fire. We got into an argument about something small. I don't even remember what it was anymore. But I do remember raising my voice. I remember her eyes filling with tears. And I remember her words, "Dad, why do you always need to be right?" That question hit me harder than any insult ever could. I wasn't trying to be right. I was trying to be heard. To be respected. To feel like my experience meant something. But in that moment, I saw it clearly: I was choosing power over peace. Ego over love. And I realized being right isn't worth losing someone's heart. Being clever doesn't make you wise. And being loud doesn't make you strong. The Stoics talk often about the power of peace. Not the external kind, but the internal one. Marcus Aurelius said, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." That quote became a daily reminder for me. Because the truth is, peace is always an option. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you can choose anger or peace. When your spouse says something in frustration, you can escalate. Or you can pause, and choose peace. When your adult child makes a decision you don't agree with, you can criticize. Or you can stay present with peace. After 40, you start to see things differently. You begin to understand that every reaction is a withdrawal from your emotional bank account. And some things just aren't worth the expense. Now, I ask myself one simple question in moments of tension: will this matter in 5 years? And most of the time, it won't even matter in 5 hours. So I let it go. Not because I'm weak, but because I'm finally strong enough to walk away without needing to prove anything. Choosing peace doesn't mean being passive. It means choosing clarity over chaos, grace over ego, silence over noise. And the more you choose it, the more it becomes who you are. These days, I don't chase arguments. I don't engage with people who thrive on conflict. And I don't waste time trying to change what I can't control. I choose peace. Every single time. And you know what? That peace has made me rich in all the ways that truly matter: closer relationships, clearer mind, lighter heart. So if you take just one lesson from this entire video, let it be this: when in doubt, choose peace. When challenged, choose peace. When your pride screams to fight, choose peace. Because nothing is worth your inner calm. And when you live from that place, from that still, grounded center, you become unshakable. Not because the world is quiet, but because you are. You've made it here through all 7 lessons. And that tells me something important: you're not here to be entertained. You're here to grow, to heal, to live with more peace and less noise. Some of these lessons may have felt uncomfortable because they challenge old patterns. They ask you to give up control, to let go of anger, to stop expecting the world to be fair. But I promise you this: the moment you stop fighting life and start aligning with truth, is the moment you begin to live free. You can't change what people do. You can't control what life takes. But you can choose how you show up. You can choose your response. You can choose peace, and that is power. So let this be your reminder: you don't need to fix everything. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to carry what no longer belongs to you. Let it go. Breathe. Be still. And remember, the calmest one in the room is always the strongest. Dove, if this video resonated with you, don't just click away. Take a moment to pause. Reflect. Then white heavy check mark like this video to share the peace. White heavy check mark subscribe so you won't miss the next lesson. White heavy check mark comment below which lesson spoke to your soul today. Your story might be the one that helps someone else find calm. If you're ready to go deeper, backhand index pointing right, watch this next: 9 things to tell yourself every day, Stoic reminders for inner peace. It's a quiet guide, a daily practice, a way to reset your mind, especially on the hard days. Click here and begin each day with wisdom that never fades.